Sometimes the greatest secrets are hidden not in what we do not know, but in what we consider obvious. All our lives we ask the wrong questions. Who created the world? What lies beyond death? Where does the soul come from? But there is a question far more terrifying. Who remembers all of it? After the old man's words, silence settled over the chamber. A silence so deep that it seemed even time itself had stopped moving. And the witness stood motionless. His black eyes were fixed upon the man beyond the light. And for the first time I saw an emotion in them, not anxiety, not fear, not anger. Sorrow. Endless sorrow. "Do not call me that," he said quietly. The old man smiled. Why? Because he no longer exists. The old man looked at him for a long time. Then he slowly shook his head. "You are mistaken." I suddenly realized that I'd completely stopped understanding what was happening. "Who is he?" I asked. No one answered. So I looked at Ariel. She was watching the witness, and there was sympathy in her gaze, as though she knew the story the rest of us were only about to hear. The old man turned his eyes toward me. "You want to know who the witness is?" I nodded. He smiled and said, "Once he was human." Silence. Absolute silence. Even Malik looked stunned. "No," he said. "Yes," the old man replied. "A very long time ago." The light around him trembled slightly, as though responding to a memory. So long ago that writing itself did not yet exist. A chill ran down my spine. His name was Aaron. The witness closed his eyes, as though the name itself caused him pain. He was the first human who refused to forget. I frowned. What does that mean? The old man took another step forward. This time, no one stopped him. In the beginning, people lived differently. His voice sounded like a story told beside a fire, like an ancient legend. When a person died, their trace gradually dissolved. He looked toward the radiant expanse. Not immediately, but inevitably. The shadows behind him moved slowly, as though listening. That was the order of things. He fell silent until Aaron appeared. I looked at the witness. He did not move, but something told me that every word was hurting him. Aaron lost his daughter, the old man continued. Lucian let out a quiet sigh. Ariel lowered her head. They already knew this story. I did not. She died when she was very young. Silence. And then he did something no one had ever done before. The old man looked at me. He refused to let her go. A strange coldness settled inside me, because I'd heard those words before. Very recently. People do not know how to let go. Every day he remembered her face. The old man continued. Her voice, her laughter, her footsteps. The light around us softened, became warmer. Year after year. And what happened? I asked. The old man smiled. Very sadly. He preserved her. Silence. Where? The old man touched his chest. Here. Then he pointed toward the radiance beyond the shattered wall. And there, I began to understand. Slowly, very slowly. Did he create this place? The old man shook his head. No. Then what did he do? That he was the first to prove that memory is stronger than death. An echo rolled through the chamber, as though space itself responded to those words. Everyone else forgot. The old man continued. But Aaron remembered. And the more he remembered, he looked at the witness, the less human he became. The witness opened his eyes, and for the first time, he spoke for himself. Enough. His voice was sharp. Too sharp. Like the voice of a man tired of hearing his own biography. No, the old man replied calmly. They need to know. The tension in the air continued to build. But no one intervened. Because everyone understood. We were approaching the very heart of the mystery. When the door appeared between the worlds, said the old man, Aaron became its guardian. I looked at the witness. Voluntarily, a long silence followed. Then he answered himself. Yes. It was the longest thing he had said in a very long time. Because I saw what happens to those who cannot say goodbye. A weariness entered his voice. Not the weariness of millennia. Something eternal. People are willing to destroy everything for the sake of one lost face. He looked at Lucian. Not accusing, not condemning. Simply stating a fact. Lucian looked away. That is why I became a guardian, the witness continued. That is why I watched. That is why I forbade. That is why I waited. He looked at me. And that is why I feared the arrival of someone like you. My mouth went dry. Why? Silence. A very long silence. Then the old man answered in his place. Because you are the first person in thousands of years who does not want to bring anyone back. Everyone turned toward me. Even I was confused. What? The old man smiled. Think about it. And so I did. About my parents, about the past, about loss, about everything that had happened. And suddenly I realized he was right. Not once throughout all of this had it occurred to me to use the door for myself. Not once. I had been searching for answers, not for restoration. The old man nodded, as though he had heard my thoughts. That is why the lock chose you. The glowing symbols beneath my skin began to disappear even faster. That is why the door answered you. He took one final step. Now, only a few meters separated us. And then he spoke words that froze the blood in my veins. Because it is time to do what neither Elian nor Aaron could. I stared at him. What exactly? The old man smiled. And within that smile was the entire history of the world. All of its sorrow, all of its beauty. To close the door, not forever. Silence. But correctly. And at that moment, somewhere far beyond the radiant horizon, the first impact sounded. As though something immense had knocked against the very fabric of reality. Once, then a second time, then a third. The old man raised his head. His smile vanished. I am afraid there is very little time left. And beyond the light, something ancient had finally begun to awaken in earnest. Sometimes the first strike sounds like thunder, the second like an earthquake, the third was something entirely different. It echoed inside each of us, not in our ears, not within the walls of the underground hall, not in the air. In memory. Suddenly, I remembered the day I first saw the ocean. Victoria staggered as if she had seen a long-forgotten face. Sebastian closed his eyes. Malik clenched his fists. Even Lucian lost his composure for a moment. Each of us remembered something different, something deeply important, something long lost. That was when I began to understand the true horror of what was happening. What was approaching did not break walls, did not destroy cities, did not bring death. It awakened longing. The very longing that lives deep inside every human being, the longing for something that can never be returned. The old man was the first to break the silence. It woke up ahead of time. The witness sharply raised his head. How much ahead? The old man did not answer immediately. He stared far beyond the radiant expanse, and for the first time, he looked troubled. Several centuries. Victoria quietly exhaled. That's impossible. Today, too many impossible things have become possible, Malik replied, and for the first time there was no mockery in his voice. Another strike rolled through the space. This time, the ceiling cracked. Long fractures spread across the ancient stone. Dust rained down from above. But nobody paid attention, because everyone was staring at the radiance beyond the shattered wall. Something strange was happening there. Millions of shadows were moving, not chaotically. They were parting, as though making way for someone, something. Who is it? I asked. The old man looked at me for a very long time, as though deciding whether I had the right to hear the answer. Then he said, "The last memory." A chill ran down my spine. I don't understand. Of course not, he smiled. People forgot about its existence long ago. He slowly approached the edge of the glowing rift. When a human being is born, they bring thousands of possibilities with them. I remained silent. You could have become anyone. He looked at me. An artist, a musician, a scientist, a traveler. I nodded. Yes. But you lived only one life. Silence. The others disappeared. I frowned. Didn't they? The old man shook his head. No. And suddenly, a strange feeling washed over me, as if I were standing at the edge of something enormous, and finally beginning to see its outline. Every unrealized possibility leaves a trace, he continued. Every path not taken, every story never begun, every life a person could have lived. He looked toward the radiant horizon. All of it remains. My heart stopped. Where? The old man answered almost in a whisper. Between worlds. Silence. A very long silence. And suddenly, I understood, not completely, but enough. The door preserved more than memories of the past. It preserved memories of things that never happened. The thought was terrifying, truly terrifying. "And the thing that's awakening?" Ariel asked. The old man lowered his gaze. For the first time, sadness appeared on his face. Deep sadness. "It is the first unrealized destiny." Cold swept through the hall. "The first?" He nodded. "The oldest." "Whose?" Lucian asked. The old man looked directly at him and answered, "Mine." Absolute silence fell. Even time itself seemed to stop. "What?" I whispered. The old man smiled, but the smile was weary. "Long ago, I was human too." The witness closed his eyes, as though he had just heard a confession he had feared for thousands of years. "I lived a life," the old man said. "Then I died like everyone else." He looked toward the shining world beyond the wall. But one of my possibilities remained. Silence. The possibility of becoming someone else. With every word, the light around him grew brighter. It spent endless ages growing, feeding on other people's regrets, their losses, their dreams. The old man fell silent, then quietly added, "Until it became something independent." An icy chill ran down my spine, because at last I understood. What was approaching had never been a god, had never been a demon, had never been a monster. It was the longing of every living being, gathered into a single whole. And then the fourth strike came. This time, the entire hall trembled. One of the columns split apart. Stones crashed to the floor. But no one even moved. Because beyond the radiant horizon, a figure appeared. Enormous, unimaginably enormous. It rose slowly, as though emerging from an ocean of light. First came a hand, then shoulders, a head, a face. And at that moment I felt true terror. Because the face was familiar, far too familiar. I had seen it before. Every day. In the mirror. The figure looked like me. Only older, more ancient, infinitely ancient. And when its eyes opened, the entire world trembled. Because it looked directly at me, at its own reflection, and smiled. "Hello, Jonathan." My voice. Exactly my voice. "I have been waiting for you for all eternity." Beside me, Lucian whispered quietly, "No." For the first time in thousands of years, the witness dropped to one knee. And the old man closed his eyes, as though hoping to delay the inevitable for just a few more seconds. Because everyone understood one thing. The being that had emerged from the light knew me better than I knew myself. And that was precisely why it was more dangerous than anything we had faced before. There is an ancient fear that is rarely spoken aloud. It is older than the fear of death, older than the fear of loneliness, older than the fear of the dark. It is the fear of seeing your true self, not the person you became, but the person you could have been. That was the fear I found myself facing. The figure stood beyond the radiant rift, enormous, impossible, and yet strangely familiar. My face, my voice, my features, but not my life. It looked at me with endless calm, as though it had been waiting for this meeting for a very long time. Perhaps longer than human history itself. "Who are you?" I asked. The being smiled. Sadly, almost tenderly. "Haven't you figured it out yet?" I remained silent, because I already understood. But I did not want to accept the truth. I am every choice you never made. Silence. Every path you left behind. Its voice echoed through the glowing expanse. Every talent you never developed, every dream you abandoned, every life you never lived. A chill ran across my skin, because there was something painfully human in those words. The being took a step forward, and suddenly the space around it changed. For a moment, I saw thousands of versions of myself. A writer, a musician, a scientist, a traveler, a soldier, an artist, a family man, an old man. Dozens, hundreds, thousands of destinies. And all of them merged into a single face. Into a single being. "You're not a monster," I whispered. "No," it replied. "That's exactly why this is so complicated." Behind me, no one moved. I could feel the eyes of Victoria, Lucian, Ariel, the witness. But now it felt as though a separate world existed between us. A world containing only me and it. "What do you want?" Its smile widened. "The same thing everyone wants." Silence. "To live." The words sounded so simple that chills ran down my spine. Because I believed it. For a second. I truly believed it. I did not choose my existence. The being continued. I was born from regret. The light around it trembled. From unlived lives, from lost possibilities, from millions of human what-ifs, looked at the radiant expanse behind it. And now there are too many of us. At that moment, I realized something terrifying. It was not speaking only about itself. The thousands of shadows behind it. Millions. All of them were the same. Not monsters. Unfulfilled destinies. Lives that had never happened. What will happen if the door opens completely? I asked. The being answered immediately. We will enter your world. Silence. And then no one will ever lose anything again. The old man sharply shook his head. Don't listen to it. But the being continued. No one will ever regret anything again. Its voice grew stronger. No one will ever wonder what might have been. The light flared brighter. Because every possibility will become real. A cold wave swept through the hall. Suddenly, I understood the consequences. A world where every possibility exists at once. A world where every person becomes an infinite number of people. A world without choice. Because choice exists only where something can be lost. The witness rose from one knee. For the first time in a long while, anger appeared in his voice. That would be the end of humanity. The being looked at him. No. Silence. It would be the end of pain. The witness smiled bitterly. They are the same thing. No one answered. Because deep down, everyone understood the meaning of those words. The being looked at me once more. You can open the door. The symbols beneath my skin flared brightly. Or you can close it. It took another step forward. But first, answer yourself honestly. I felt my heart beat faster. Because I already knew the question. Even before I heard it. Have you never wanted to know who you could have become? Silence. Absolute silence. And then it began. Visions. Hundreds. Thousands. I saw my own life. Then another. And another. And another. I saw myself famous, rich, happy, loved, successful. I saw worlds where my parents had lived longer, where there had been no losses, where there had been no mistakes. Every image looked beautiful. Every one seemed better than mine. For a moment, I almost gave in. almost. But then, among the endless visions, I noticed something strange. Something was missing from all those lives. At first, I couldn't understand what. Then I saw it. Every single one lacked the same thing. Chance. Unexpectedness. A genuine miracle. All the perfect lives seemed too perfect, too complete, too predictable. And suddenly I remembered the words of Edward Harlow. Some doors must remain closed, not because evil lies behind them, but because not everything that is lost should be returned. I raised my head and looked at the being. Now I understand. It watched me carefully. What exactly? I smiled. For the first time in a very long while. A real smile. You are not my unlived life. Silence. Then, who am I? I looked at the millions of shadows behind it, at the radiance, at the door, at the endless memory of the world, and answered. You are my longing for it. For the first time, the being stopped smiling. Because, at last, it had heard the truth about itself. And somewhere far beyond the light, something began that would change the fate of both worlds forever. Words possess a strange power. Sometimes a sword cannot accomplish what a single sentence can. Sometimes millennia of struggle end with just a few words. You are my longing for her. After those words, silence fell. The being looked at me, without moving, without blinking. For the first time, confusion appeared in its eyes, real confusion, almost human. No, it said quietly, but the certainty that had once filled its voice was gone. Yes, I replied. The light around us began to change, as if the door itself were listening to the conversation. I took a step forward. For the first time, I felt no fear, because at last I understood. We had all been wrong, even the witness, even Lucian, even the creator. We had been searching for a monster, and instead, we had found pain. You claim to be all possibilities, I said. I am. Then why do you look like me? The being remained silent. Why did you come specifically to me? Silence. The light began to pulse, like an enormous heart. Because you carry the lock, it finally answered. No, I shook my head. That's only the excuse. I looked directly into its eyes, into my own eyes. There's another reason. Behind me, no one intervened. Everyone listened, even the ancient immortals. even the being older than civilizations. You came to me because you're like me. Silence. In what way? I took a deep breath. We both lost something we never truly had. Those words struck it like a blow. The radiance behind the being trembled. Millions of shadows froze. "Explain," Victoria whispered. But I looked only at it. All their lives, people imagine the future. My voice sounded calm. Who they'll become, whom they'll meet, what they'll build, what they'll accomplish. I remembered my own dreams, forgotten, foolish, beautiful. Most of them never come true. The being remains silent, and that's normal. With every word, my understanding grew clearer. Because a person is not meant to live every possible life. Silence. One is enough. Somewhere deep within the radiance, a low rumble echoed, as if infinity itself were considering what it had heard. And what if that life is a bad one? The being asked. Its voice had changed, quieter, younger. What if a person makes mistakes? They do, I answered. Constantly. And what if they regret them? I smiled. Then they're human. Silence. And what if they love? This time I looked at Lucian, at Ariel, at the thousands of years of pain between them. Then letting go hurts even more. The being lowered its head for the first time. And in that moment, something extraordinary happened. I saw its true face, not mine, not someone else's, its own. The face of an infinitely lonely being, one that had spent millions of years trying to become real. I only wanted to live, it whispered. Those words were more frightening than any scream, because there was no threat in them, only sorrow. The old man slowly closed his eyes. The witness turned away. Ariel began to cry. Because everyone understood. It had never been the enemy. It had been a prisoner. A prisoner of unrealized dreams. I know, I replied. I truly know. The being looked at me, and suddenly it became smaller, only slightly, but enough for everyone to notice. What's happening? Sebastian whispered. The old man smiled, very sadly. For the first time, it had stopped resisting. The light around us began to change. Softer, quieter, calmer. The being looked at me again. If I leave, its voice trembled. What will remain of me? Silence. I searched for an answer for a long time, and unexpectedly, I found one. the same thing that remains of every person. It waited. Memory. A wind seemed to sweep through the radiance. Millions of shadows stirred, not anxiously, not threateningly, as though something immense had finally exhaled after a very long wait. Memory, the being repeated. Yes. I looked at the endless expanse behind it. Isn't that the reason this place exists at all? Silence. A very long silence. And then the impossible happened. The being smiled, truly smiled, for the first time, without longing, without pain, without despair. It simply smiled, like a person who had finally understood something important. "I think," it whispered. "Now I'm beginning to understand as well." At that moment, the lock beneath my skin erupted with blinding light, so bright that the walls disappeared, the underground chamber disappeared, the people disappeared. Only the light remained, the silence, and the door. Vast, ancient, real. For the first time, I saw it in its entirety, and I understood. It had never been a prison. It had never been a barrier. It had never been a lock. It was a choice. Between memory and obsession. Between love and the inability to let go. Between the past and life itself. And now that choice belonged to me. And behind me, millions of voices waited for a decision. There is a belief that the most important decisions are made in the middle of a storm, amid the thunder of battle, amid screams, amid the clash of weapons. That is not true. The most important decisions are made in silence. It was in such silence that I stood before the door. It towered above the world, above time, above memory. Far greater than I had ever imagined. It could not be measured. It could not be described. Because it appeared differently to everyone who looked upon it. To Lucian, it was the last chance to reclaim the past. To Ariel, it was the road home. To the witness, it was a duty that had lasted for eternity. To the creator, it was a reminder. And to me, it looked like a choice. Behind me stood the others. I could feel their presence, but I did not turn around. Because I knew. If I looked at them now, I might change my mind. "You already know the answer," a voice spoke beside me. The old man. The creator. Or the man who had once been him. He stood beside me, calm, weary. "Maybe," I replied. "Are you afraid?" I smiled. "Of course." The old man nodded. That's a good sign. For a long time, we gazed at the door, at its endless patterns, at the glowing lines, at the symbols that resembled those beneath my skin, only far older. "What will happen after I make my choice?" I asked. The old man thought for a moment. "No one knows." I laughed. Very reassuring. This time, he smiled too. Some things are meant to remain unknown. Silence returned once more. Peaceful, warm, as though reality itself were waiting. "Jonathan." I turned. "Lucian." He stood a few steps away. Ariel stood beside him. For the first time in thousands of years, side by side. Truly side by side. "Yes?" He looked at me for a long time, as though he wanted to say a great many things. But in the end, he spoke only a single sentence. "Thank you." I smiled. "For what?" This time, Ariel answered. "For reminding us of the difference between love and obsession." Lucian lowered his gaze. And for the first time in history, I saw the weight of millennia beginning to leave his shoulders. He no longer looked like a man chasing the past. Only like a man who had finally met it. A little farther away stood Victoria. Her arms were crossed, as always. But her eyes betrayed her. "I hate goodbyes," she said. "It shows." She snorted. "If this ends badly, I'll hate you." "Fair enough." "If it ends well, I will too." I laughed. And for the first time in a long while, I heard her laugh in return. Real, alive. Sebastian simply nodded. Sometimes that is enough. Then I looked at the witness. He stood apart from the others. As always. The guardian, the observer, the last keeper of the boundary. "And what now?" I asked. He was silent for a long time. A very long time. Then he answered. "Now my duty comes to an end." Silence. "After all these years?" A faint smile appeared on his face. Perhaps for the first time. Even eternity ends eventually. I remembered his story, his daughter, the memory, the sacrifice, thousands of years of solitude, and suddenly I understood. He was tired. not physically. Far deeper than that. The kind of exhaustion felt only by those who have carried the world on their shoulders for too long. "Will you see her?" I asked. He froze. Only for a moment. But I noticed. Perhaps, and for the first time, hope appeared in his voice. Very small, but real. I turned back toward the door. It was time. The light beneath my skin flared. The symbols climbed along my arms, across my neck, across my face. There was no pain. Only warmth. A strangely familiar warmth. As if thousands of hands were gently touching my shoulder. Millions of voices beyond the door whispered at once, not demanding, not pleading, simply waiting. I raised my hand and touched its surface. The moment I did, the world vanished. I saw everything. Every life, every love, every death. Every child's first step, every old man's final smile, every meeting, every farewell. The entire history of humanity. But most importantly, I saw a single truth. A very simple truth. A surprisingly simple truth. People do not become great because they live forever. People become great because their time is limited. That is why every moment matters. That is why love matters. That is why loss matters. Because everything ends. And then I made my choice. Not to close the door. And not to open it. No. I did something else. Something no one had ever tried before. I turned the lock. A sound echoed. Soft. Very soft. Like a sigh. Or a release. The door began to change. Slowly. Its outlines dissolved. Becoming light. Becoming memory. Becoming something more natural. It was no longer a passage. It was becoming what it had always been meant to be. A bridge. Not for bodies. For memories. For love. For remembrance. I could feel the worlds rearranging themselves. Not colliding. Not destroying one another. But finding balance. Behind me, millions of voices began to fade. Not disappearing. Growing quiet. Like an ocean after a storm. And then I heard the final voice. The one I knew. The man I never became. Thank you. I smiled. For what? The answer came from the light. Soft. Almost happy. For teaching me how to let go. And after that, he vanished. He did not die. He did not dissolve. He simply became part of everything else. Part of memory. Part of history. Part of eternity. And then silence came. True silence. The first in thousands of years. And as somewhere far beyond time, a black rose bloomed. The last one, and the first at the same time. There is one thing people always understand too late. The end of a story and the end of a life are two very different things. One day, a story ends, but life goes on, even after miracles, even after catastrophes, even after the fate of the world has changed. 27 years passed. Autumn returned once again to New England. The wind wandered through the old streets of a small town on the coast of Maine. Leaves swirled above the wet pavement. The ocean murmured somewhere in the distance. The world moved on, as it always does. Most people never realized how close they had once come to the edge of the impossible. And that was how it should be. Some secrets do not need witnesses. I was sitting on the porch of an old house. A cup of long cold coffee stood before me. A thick manuscript rested on my lap. The final chapter, the final period, the final page. Much had changed in 27 years. My hair had turned gray. Wrinkles had appeared. My knees had begun to ache whenever it rained, which, as it turned out, was extremely annoying after having once saved reality itself. I became a writer. Funny, really. Once, one of my unrealized possibilities had shown me this very life. Back then, it seemed boring. Now, it did not. A book lay on the table. My book. A black rose was pictured on the cover. No author's name. Safer that way. More fitting that way. Sometimes people asked me, "Is it a novel?" And I always gave the same answer. Of course, because no one would ever believe the truth. Laughter drifted from inside the house. A woman's laughter, warm, alive. I smiled. Then I heard quick footsteps. A girl of about 10 ran onto the porch. Her hair was a mess, far too curious for her own peace of mind. "Grandpa," I set the manuscript aside. "What happened?" "You're talking to yourself again. That's called thinking." "No." She shook her head very seriously. "That's called getting old." I laughed. Those are the moments worth living for. Not immortality, not great mysteries, not eternity. This, right here. As she sat down beside me and looked at the book. "Did you finish it?" "Almost." "Does it have a happy ending?" I thought about it, very seriously. Then I answered, "I think so." The girl nodded. Then everything's fine. As if that settled every question in the universe. Perhaps it did. A few weeks later, I traveled to Boston. An ordinary trip, nothing special. At least that was what I thought. A fine autumn rain fell all day. People hurried about their business. Taxis honked. The city lived its own life. That was why I did not immediately notice the man standing on the other side of the street. Tall, wearing a dark coat, with familiar silver eyes. I stopped. So did he. And we looked at each other across the stream of traffic. For a few seconds, or perhaps a few centuries. It was hard to tell. Then Lucian smiled, truly smiled, without sadness, without guilt, without the weight of the past. Beside him stood a woman, golden-haired. She was smiling too. Ariel. They looked happy, not immortal, not legendary, simply happy. Lucian lightly touched the brim of an imaginary hat, an old habit. Then they turned away and disappeared into the crowd. I never saw them again, but that was enough. Victoria appeared 3 years later, as usual, without warning. I opened the door and found her standing on the porch with a travel bag and an expression of profound dissatisfaction. "You look terrible," she said instead of greeting me. "Good to see you, too." Liar. A little. She walked into the house, as though she had not vanished for decades, as though not 3 years had passed, but 3 days. "Do you have coffee?" "Of course." "Then I might stay." And she stayed for a month, explaining nothing, as always. Before leaving, she stood for a long time on the shore of the ocean, silent, watching the waves. "Do you miss them?" I asked. She did not answer for a long time, a very long time. "Sometimes." "Who do you miss?" Victoria smiled, rarely, very rarely, which was exactly why her smiles were always genuine. "Everyone." Then she left, and disappeared into the world once again, like the wind, like autumn, like certain people. As for the witness, I saw him only once, 27 years later. It happened at night, in the old Blackwood Cemetery, the place where it had all begun. Moonlight illuminated the gravestones. The wind whispered through the grass, and among the graves stood a man dressed in dark clothing, entirely alone. I recognized him immediately, though he had changed a great deal. His eyes were no longer black. Now they were ordinary, human. He no longer looked ancient, no longer looked eternal, no longer looked like a guardian. Just a man. We stood in silence for a long time. Then I asked, "Did you find her?" He smiled, the calmest smile I had ever seen. "Yes." Silence. "And how is she?" For a moment, his gaze became astonishingly warm. "She's older than I am now." I laughed, and so did he, perhaps for the first time in thousands of years. Then we watched the stars, like two old friends, though we both knew it was our last meeting. Before leaving, he stopped and spoke words I would remember forever. "Do you know what I realized?" "What?" He looked at the night sky, at the endless darkness between the stars, at the memory of the world, at life itself, and answered, "Death was never the opposite of life." I waited for him to continue. Oblivion was. After that, he left, and I never saw him again, ever. Now, as I write these lines, rain is falling outside once more. Autumn is returning, as it always does. On the table stands an old dried rose, black, the last one I have left. Sometimes I think it still carries the scent of that garden, that world, that story. And sometimes I think I am simply growing old, which is entirely possible. But there is one thing I know for certain. Every life ends someday. Every love becomes a memory someday. Every story reaches its final page, and there is no tragedy in that. Because the meaning was never in eternity. The meaning was that it happened at all. I close the manuscript. I turn out the light, and I hear the ocean somewhere far away. And for a moment, I think I hear a familiar whisper. Very distant, very warm. As though the memory of the world itself is smiling in the darkness. And that is enough. The end and the beginning